Okay, welcome to the live stream today. I will be talking today with Dr. G, catering to the culture. And so, what we're going to be discussing today is some of the needs that our Black children have when dealing with the school setting and the pursuit of their education, and what we think is missing. Why are we not able to perform in the higher levels overall? We may have some exceptions, but what can we do to increase the number of children who graduate? The school satisfaction scales. How do we know our kids are happy at school? And so, for those of you watching the replay as well, um, all feedback is welcome. Hey, Third Ward, welcome. All feedback is welcome, and any comments or anything that you feel like we need to discuss or add later, as long as it's respectful, I'm open to it. So we'll start off right now. First of all, Dr. G, any introduction that you have? Anything that you
Oh,
want to
well,
say specifically?
yeah, I would just say, thank you so much for having me, Topaz. As I shared, I was surprised to get the invite, but I am pleased because what it tells me is that, some of the little work that I put in here is making a difference. People have been able to resonate with my voice and in the message that I'm leaving. And so I just want to what's good, Third Ward, Columbia? He is always so supportive and shouting me out. So it's good to be
Right.
shout him out publicly, right here on the platform. So I'm looking forward to it, babe. So let's get started.
Okay. So we'll start off with our first song by it's called I'm Upset, because I am upset with how our kids don't get what they need during in the learning setting, right? And it's by Drake, of course. I think this is something that he has a huge fan base. Maybe a lot of people could understand it. The song is basically saying that he feels people aren't putting enough respect on his existence. If you're
Oh,
going to try to be a hater and take him out, you need to spend more money. There's not gonna, I feel like I'm worth more than that. So hopefully you guys will listen to this and understand the anger that I have about why our kids aren't getting what they need. A stretch, I know, but I like the song.
it's okay.
Can you hear the music?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm on set. 50,000 on my head is disrespect. So offended that I had to double check. I'ma always take the money over set. That's why they need me out the way. What you expect? Got a lot of blood in this cup. They keep trying to get me for my soul. Thankful for the women that I know. Can't go 50-50 with no hope. Every month, I'm supposed to pay her bills and get her what she want. I still got like 7 years of doing what I want. My dad still got child support from 1991. Out of town, people love to pop a lot of shit and come around. Word of Flocko Jody, he done seen us put it down. Niggas asking if I'm cool, I'm upset. 100,000 on my head is disrespect. So offended that I had to double check. You tryna check? This is real life. Niggas think we playing chess. So what's next? Jump up out the bed like I'm obsessed. I go out on tour and I say I'm drinking less. And I'm getting loose and getting pictures from my ex. SMS, triple X. That's the only time I ever shoot below the net. Why you keep on shooting if you know that nigga's dead? That's the only kind of shit that gives you so respect. Got a lot of blood in this cold. They keep trying to get me for my soul. Thankful for the women that I know. Can't go 50-50 with no hope. Every month, she don't even love me, she just putting on the front. She gon' try to settle out of court if they gon' run. They gon' ask me how I'm doing, I'm set. $500,000 on my head, I can't accept, yeah. This shit make me feel like someone tried their best, yeah. Wanna waste $500,000, be my guest. Make me wanna buy a vest and a tech. But I'm fast, I just check. Amy never met me in the flesh. Say she got some things she gotta come here and collect. That shit is in a box to the left, to the left. Got a lot of blood in this cup. They keep trying to get me for my soul. Okay, welcome everyone. Hey Kenny, welcome to the stream. Um, so the first two things that I wanted to discuss, so of course in the song, there's a whole lot of references to people, basically looking down on him. I get that. Our kids get that a lot in the school session, in the school setting. And before the live stream began, Dr. G and I were discussing, you know, cultural competence. So we even have a lot of people here in Black YouTube, but also in the real world. When I go outside, the common theme when I speak to people, because I'm loquacious and I can talk to almost anybody, the common theme is that Black people don't have a culture, or those who recognize that we do have a culture feel like it's just the worst thing in the world. And so, Dr. G, I just kind of want to have you speak a little bit to what you feel about our culture. The name of your channel is Catering to the Culture. So, would it be correct to say that you do feel like we have a culture, but it needs to be cultivated?
I absolutely feel like we have a culture. And before I get started, hello everyone in the chat. Cool Gen 87, what's good? Kenny. Hey guys, thanks so much for being here and all the folks listening. But yeah, absolutely we have a culture. The culture, the American system itself is based on the Black American culture, the culture that we set. I mean, that this is what is appropriated every single day right before our eyes. The issue is we don't own it as ours. And so we don't recognize when other people are literally taking from us those things that are intrinsic to us. Right. And so when you say cultivated, I think that not only does it need to be cultivated, it also needs to be recognized as prominent and something that people value. It's there. We have every aspect of culture for what culture means, right? We
Right.
have belief systems, we have morals, we have values, we have ways of thinking about problems and working through them. We have these tenets that denote culture. The thing about it is sometimes, and because we live in an American system that's not, and we are not the dominant in this system, right?
Right.
Um, our culture is easily changed, and it's not a fixed culture. So we will have subcultures that we don't agree with. We will have deficit cultures that are not reminiscent of who we are as a truly principled, spiritual, talented, and intelligent people. But that does not mean we don't have culture. It just simply means we have to work harder to, as you said, cultivate it and to make it something to be proud of. I cringe when Black people say we don't have culture. You're on some premise, right? And that's usually a cultural premise. We just have to recognize when it's ours and then make sure we do everything we can to preserve it and uphold that.
Right. Absolutely. Well, one thing that I hear in, like, when people are saying that we don't have a culture, right? Or either the people that say that our culture is just, it needs to just be thrown away. The thing that I haven't figured out a way to explain sufficiently, apparently, is that you cannot throw away a culture. It won't go away until we're all extinct, and that has its way of happening and everything. But it's gonna still be here, and it's up to us. It's what we make it. And so there are a lot of people that walk around every day with low self-esteem. They look in the mirror and they literally spend all the morning. Their first thoughts are wishing to be something or someone else. How do you expect the day to go? I talk a lot about our thoughts, and those thoughts lead to certain emotional states, which then color our behavioral choices, right? If you wake up in the morning and your first thoughts are, I want to be something different, I don't like the body that I'm in, until science finds a way to transport you into another one, you're stuck there. So then your thought that morning is hopelessness, regret, sadness. It might even be anxiety of what you think is going to happen to you because of your skin color or your appearance. And then what behavior choices are you going to have? What kind of comments are you going to say to people? What are you going to let happen to you? What choices are you going to make? What do you think you deserve? What are you going to go after versus let get away from you and not accept if it's a good thing? So, to me, it no longer triggers me to be hurt myself, but it makes me feel sad for the person that's saying this. And so when I tell people, don't say that you want to throw away the culture, don't say that you want to throw away the Black community, it literally is me trying to cheer them up and not admonish them. So what's the emotion that you get when you encounter these people?
Um, I guess I become sad because it tells me, it gives me a bigger understanding of how deep our oppression is and
Yep.
how long it's gonna take for us to really reach a place where we can consider ourselves free and not oppressed, right? Because
Right.
certainly in this America, in these Americas, I like to call it this wilderness that we're in, there's going to be a certain amount of oppression under this system, but you can be free through your mindset, through your heart set, how you move about in your day. And you're going to encounter these barriers that America has put in our place, no doubt about it. You're going to encounter that as a Black person in America. However, if on top of the oppression, you also don't believe that you possess culture, that you are a brilliant, that you are intelligent innately, like these things are within you. If you don't believe that your melanin is a prize, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I can't imagine how you, as you say, even go through your day, because these are the things that make me get up every day and continue to strive and thrive. It's because I know
Right.
that my presence here is heavily sought out, even though the dominant culture won't ever tell me that. I know that it's heavily sought out. I know that the ideas that come very naturally to me that I don't always act upon, I know that mainstream society wish they could take and bottle that, right? And sell it on the
Mm-hmm.
market. You see what I'm saying? But if we have
Right.
people who don't understand these things on a daily basis, it makes me feel sad for them. Because how are you even living with everything that's thrown at you, and then you have these deficit thoughts about yourself? How do you even get through the day?
Right. And that's what I wanted to talk about next, right? So I always say thoughts, emotions, feelings. And so there are three things that come to mind when I, talk with kids, when I interact with people, and when I develop these trainings or these curriculums. Because before we get to that, I just want to let you guys know that Dr. G is well traveled in this information. She is visiting places all throughout the country. So she's not just getting this from one place. This is a woman who has in her career been in touch with different cultures, different groups, different areas in this nation, right? So I want you guys to take that into consideration when she's saying the things that she's saying. So I've done like employee trainings for new companies. I've done parent trainings for ABA techniques. I got some trainings in parental alienation, anger management, things like that. And so a lot of the things that I say come from a conglomerate of all of the information brought to me in session. So I want you guys to know this is not just based on one person. There are times where the things someone is saying at that moment resonate, and I've heard it before, and I've heard it a lot before. So I try to deal with the ones that I hear the most. It just keeps getting said over and over and over. So the three aspects that I noticed was one, indoctrination. Our kids are too susceptible. And then what that susceptibility leads to is hopelessness. There
Mm.
are kids that are acting up in school that are extremely smart. There are kids that are acting up in school that just get distracted easily because they have a free spirit and creative, thought process. And so what happens is if and I'm glad that you said dominant culture because that's the terminology I use as well. I don't think that they're supreme. I don't think that they're superior. I don't think any of those things. I think that they just happen to have the power right now based on the actions that they did. So I don't use those terms. I know there is a system that elevates them over us, but that I don't pay attention to it because it can be overthrown if we put in the work to do so. So I'm happy that you use that terminology here.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
anyway, in terms of the indoctrination, right? It's being placed into our kids from the very beginning, from pre-kindergarten. How many of our kids come home with behavioral notices? You see their grades, and the grades are, B's, which means that they're retaining the information even throughout all of the disciplinary actions, even throughout all of the acting up. They have solid B, high C averages, but their conduct grades are in the toilet. A lot of the times, if you ask the teacher what were they doing, it was something that they learned at home and something that they are fine with doing in our culture, something that we reward at home. But when they get to school, it's seen as distracting and in the way. Are kids going to learn to do one thing in one place and another thing in another one? Yes, eventually. But if they get these labels in pre-kindergarten, their first year in organized school setting, that follows them. Their teachers, their reputation will precede them. Their teachers will now believe that this is a kid that is acting out. And lots of kids have gotten labels, they've gotten diagnoses, medication, all different types of things way too early. There was a story recently about a 6-year-old who had a tantrum at school and got, admitted to a inpatient facility. That's now going to be something that everybody feels the need to keep forwarding to the next teacher. She's going to be labeled with an emotional disturbance or something that A, takes the resources away from the kids who truly need it, and B, stops her from being able to do anything else. Have you seen this
Mm.
story, Dr. G?
Yeah, I heard about it. I think it was probably even today, maybe on another stream. I think in the stream I was sharing with you that Phil and Irene did. I think it
Yes.
was mentioned in that stream. Yeah, that is just so sad. As a matter of fact, I know it was mentioned because Irene was talking about how irate it made her to hear that something like that was happening to a 6-year-old.
Right. Exactly. A 6-year-old has only been on this planet 6 years. Basically, what you're saying is that no one has figured out how to handle whatever it is that she's upset with. She should not be held responsible for that. She's only been here 6 years, as opposed to the adults around her who've been here at least, at minimum, 18 years. So
Yeah.
you mean to tell me that you're gonna just lock her away now? And did they even solve the problem? Like, what is an inpatient facility going to do for her when she had a tantrum meltdown? I didn't hear anything about, anything that rose to the level of criteria for admission, is what I didn't hear in the story. Welcome,
Right.
Mackie Samuel. So
And
after the induct, oh, go ahead.
well, go ahead. No, go ahead because you're laying a
Well,
premise. I can wait.
I was going to go to the second one, but so if your comment is about what we were talking about now, I want you to
Okay.
do that one first.
Right. So the indoctrination is huge because it happens every day, all day in our regular lives. When you think about just a regular trip to your grocery store, for instance, you can walk into your grocery store and see every culture, every ethnicity represented except
Hmm.
Blackness, right? Your
Right.
billboards, your advertisements, your marketing, commercials on television, and now even television shows, there's an absence of Black presence, right? Some of our
Right.
kids never get to see prominent Black people who are not fictitious in nature. So I'm talking about, when I say prominent, I mean folks who have been able to move themselves out of a state of, unemployment or this or that. So to become the teacher, the judge, the lawyer, the doctors, they don't see themselves, the authors and illustrators and all of these things that make up our culture see that. And so, how can they strive to be at one with something that in their minds doesn't exist? They're constantly being
Right.
told that whiteness is best. Whiteness is the way to go. Strive for whiteness because whiteness is successful. And it's done through the most covert methods, things that you would rarely even pick up on, are ways that our children are indoctrinated from a very early age. Then you take them and you place them in a system, the school system, where they are met with teachers that don't look like them, and teachers who are not in a position to, don't have a desire to, or just totally ignorant to the notion that these kids have a different cultural basis from which they're going to operate. It's just different. But
Right.
because these teachers are not aware of the difference, they look at it as a deficit. They look at it as a discipline issue, something wrong, something that should be punished. And this is how
Right.
we begin to have our kids from very, very early age disenfranchised by the school system. They are not met with enough people who understand culture through a lens of race, right? They
Right.
just don't get it. There are, in my work, I teach teachers all the time. There are 16 predominant cultural behaviors that students will manifest in the classroom no matter what. This is what they will come with, and you will see them manifested in different ways. But if the teachers don't understand that these are cultural, meaning they won't change, meaning this is who they are, and they continue
Hmm.
to persist to punish the kids, then our students just by default can't operate, can't flourish in that system. So the indoctrination is not only real, but it's embedded from a very early age, very early age.
And that's another thing I wanted to talk. We'll talk. Well, I was planning on talking about child development a little bit later, like the basic things that we all need to know so that when we interact with kids, it would be something meaningful, right? So, one thing that people need to understand is just like in Dr. G's example right now, kids, first of all, we need to know that kids communicate. They don't have all of the words yet. They're still experiencing life and waking up every day with tasks to do while learning a language. And so that language is split between what they're allowed to say at home versus what they're allowed to say at school. Will people understand them in one environment and not the other? Yes. And so what that means is when you have people in the culture in our society, as when they walk outside every day, when they turn on their TV, if the only prominent people that they do see have assimilated, they may not be able to form the words, but what that message is to them, what they're hearing, what they're seeing, is just like if an adult walked over to them and said to them, if you want to have something to eat when you grow up, if you want to have a place to live, if you want to be able to smile, you'll behave like white people do. And so that's when they first start getting that message. So when they come home and they show disdain for something that you've provided for them, if they get admonished, what they're hearing essentially now is, but you're not allowed to behave like white people. And so therefore, you need to make your peace with never having anything. So with that being said, if that's the message they're getting, and then when they go to school, they get put into the corner, they get sent to detention or to the principal's office, they get expelled. Well, but this is what I'm supposed to do. So then it doesn't have an impact on them. And then we get adults saying that our kids, you have to beat them. You cannot reason with them, that they aren't going to ever be anything. And then they hear people say that the community just needs to be burned down. So what kind of life is that for a person? What kind of adult do y'all expect to get out of that? You're going to get one that feels like they have nothing to lose. And that what difference does it make? If they kill you, they're saving you. You were supposed to die anyway. So there are a lot of barriers to why we're not getting the progress that we want, let alone we're not understanding what progress actually looks like if we survive. If we assimilate, yes, we can see what that success, what that progress would look like. But we wouldn't survive. We would be here in body, but not in spirit. So any comments about that? I'm kind of long-winded, Dr. G. So if you ever need to jump in, just please stop me.
I have the tendency to be verbose myself, but I'm loving listening to you speak on it, sis, because you're absolutely right. When you have been subjected to a certain treatment all of your life based on your quote unquote bad behavior, you begin to believe that that is just who you are. And then by virtue, you're going through what a person who has this bad behavior goes through. It's nothing to
Right.
change, it's nothing to build to, it's nothing to grow out of. And then couple that with the fact again that we're not seeing images that tell us differently. Our music is not telling us anything different. The movies is not telling us anything differently. We don't have people who we look at as successful, quote unquote, these celebrities who are telling us anything differently because why? They usually subside with the dominant culture. It's about the check, right? So the kids are not seeing any of these things. And then let me just add this to it. Not only are our children susceptible to this, But we as adults are also susceptible when we place ourselves in
Right.
these systems and then don't ever become fulfilled by our own cultural beliefs, by our own direction. So I'll give you an example. And I shared this with Topaz. I have a doctorate degree in education, educational leadership, which means I've gone through the American education system from kindergarten clean to the highest level that you can
Yep.
aspire to in this country, right?
Like 12
And
years after, right? How long does it take to get a doctorate?
well, so you have the master's degree, which is supposed to be an additional 2 years. And then the
Okay.
doctorate degree is supposed to be an additional 3 to 4 years, depending on, whether you do EDD, which is an education, or you do PhD, which is a philosophical. It just
Okay.
depends on after the bachelor's degree, which is 4 years. And then you have the master's, which is two. So that's an additional six. You're looking at an additional 3 to 4 years of
Hmm.
being in a system that is constantly putting these images in front of you, constantly giving you that narrative, constantly with the indoctrination. So, and I'm going to do some commentary on this. This becomes what many of us believes is true and in fact about ourselves and our people. We become to believe it because look at how many years you've rested in that place where all you heard was that narrative from the mainstream. All you heard and all you saw were those images from the mainstream. You never saw images that told you that you were the best, that melanin was a prize, that
Right.
folks are aspiring to be like you, even though they don't tell you. You're not getting any of that. The history has changed, so you don't even learn about Black people who have done great things in the history of this country and beyond. So you don't even get to hear those stories. Religion has changed, and so now you're aspiring to pray to whiteness, right?
Right.
So even your spirituality, quote unquote, spirituality or religion is changed. So you're never really getting that fulfillment. So when we encounter grown people who have that deficit mindset and we're wondering, wow, what happened to you? Where did somebody go wrong? How have you been hurt? These are people who have rested in the system of indoctrination and never challenged it. They were never given anything
Hmm.
different. They were never presented a counter narrative. For me, I think the difference for me is my mom was a career woman. She was military at a time. She did 2 years in reserve, and during the time when she was going through, you could do 2 years and get full benefits. So she did 2 years. She couldn't take it anymore. Why? Because she is about Blackness, and she saw what was going on with that. So she couldn't
Hmm.
persist. She did her 2 years and she got out. And then she just worked herself up through the ranks. She ended up retiring from Teamsters. The only ever become a business agent. And that's what a lot of those guys are aspiring to. They want to get out of their shop and go into becoming a business agent because then you become sort of like a lawyer where you're defending the workers versus the establishment. Okay. So
Hmm.
my mom was the only Black female to ever get to a place in her shop who was doing that kind of work. So she made a good living for herself. Today she's retired and she's almost making the same salary she was when she was working. That doesn't happen anymore. I say all
Right.
this to say my mom was able to an extent, maintain her Blackness and maintain the message for her kids that Black is beautiful. You are beautiful. You ascribe to be the best you. You never try to be them. That is them. You are you. And so as I was growing up, I kept hearing about my greatness. And I'm a very dark
Hmm.
skinned, complected female. So, it was tough as a child. But when I have my mom validating my beauty, when I have my uncle, my great uncle, he was the patriarch in our lives, my great uncle, my grandmother's brother. When I have these people who I love and who are close to me telling me how anything, then I'm getting the counter narrative to the mainstream narrative, right? I'm getting what I
Right.
need in my daily life to be able to say, okay, well, I know Jesus isn't white. I know that whiteness isn't best. I know that I can be who I need to be as a Black female. I think many of us don't have that. So you're not getting the others, they're not getting the other side, right? They're not getting the counter narrative to the mainstream narrative. And so when we
Right.
encounter them as people who are at least somewhat conscious of who we are, we wonder, well, what in the world has happened to them? Where have you been? They've been in this system with no, they've been in the echo chamber with no way of understanding or even knowing who they are as Black people, what they're capable of as Black people. They've bit into the narrative, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
we have to be very patient, and it gets on my nerves too when I hear people say we don't have culture. When I hear people talk about how the crime is committed by Black people and Black on Black crime, and people being locked up and Black people being broke and all of this stuff, it gets on my nerves and I just want to scream, right? And then I have to pull
Mm-hmm.
back a minute and check myself and say, wait a minute, what has their experience been? Because our experiences do what? They paint who we are. And if their
Right.
experiences have been that has taught them to not love themselves, then that is essentially what they're speaking through. And we have to understand that, right? We have to
Right.
be very conscious that these are going to be people who are broken. These are going to be people who aspire to whiteness because they think that that's the goal that everyone should be aspiring to. And where do they get that from? They get that from the American education system. They get that from working in these
Exactly.
in these organizations. They get that from being a part of mainstream society and never having a good counter narrative. So,
Right. And there are a lot of people that get upset with the word slavery being brought up a whole lot. Well, my answer for that is that it does still impact us. Think about the setup of class in slavery at that time, and how much has it really changed to now? First of all, in terms of the way the length and the age of cultures, we have not been that removed. We haven't been removed that long, and then we still have not been removed from the place. We have not even had an attempt at trying to overthrow what we don't like that has been placed here. So what was the structure then? Well, there was a group of people who went in and did not mind killing, raping, pillaging, stealing. They took over. Finally, they fought everybody else off that tried to come over here in order to be able to stop that from happening, all while we were putting in the work to get everything set up. And then we had to just know that it was for them. There's no payment, there's no acknowledgement or appreciation. It's like it's being made to be, oh, well, that's normal. That's what is supposed to happen in the world. That's life. And that is not life. That is one aspect of life that happened because some culture made a choice. what what do we expect for history to sound like if we're not the ones writing it? Everyone that it participates in any event goes home and tells the people that relate to them, everyone that thinks like them. They tell the story of what happened, and then you pick a character. You pick the one that you relate to. Unfortunately, when it comes to race relations, we have to pick the one that in the race to which we belong. And why? Because you can't play the role of any other characters. You cannot. You're not going to be cast for it. So once they get back and they tell you the story, they're telling you through their lens. If you identify with that character, then you should be viewing history through that lens. But if that person never gets to go and tell their story, which is what happened to us, that's why we don't have a character in this fight. We feel like we didn't exist, even though, and that's why it sounds crazy when someone brings up the fact that look at all of what we did on this country. There are people out there that have the thought process to where it sounds crazy for somebody to say that because they don't have a character in the development of this country. That person never got to tell their story. They don't know what happened. So now it's just the account from the other people that were there that are coming back telling the story. Does that make sense?
Oh, it absolutely does. And then you can forget about it if they're ever going to get anything, that looks like the truth from school.
Right. Right.
School is
Why
not
would
going to
they?
teach you. School is going to teach you how to be American, how to be standardized, how to be absent of your culture. But the American system does that to every culture. They look to make you American, they look to standardize you. And because of our
Right.
history, it was very easy to do because why? Many of us don't have any clue of where we come from or, what our true selves actually looks like. So it was very easy to do. And after all this time, that's how come, it makes me angry to hear people say we don't have culture, but I understand where it comes from. And then I just try to educate as much as I can. I try
Mhm.
to educate. But you're absolutely right, Topaz.
And you know what I think is going to be able to solve that? And then I'll be done with the indoctrination piece. And if you have anything to add, the way we solve that is to let go of the narrative of the only way for us to get better would be for us to know specifically what happened back then. We aren't going to ever know that. What we can do is recognize what's called point of view. So if we are getting the story from the point of view of the dominant society, put yourself in the place of a person who was back there who would be interacting with them. If they are the dominant culture and your culture is not, what are reasonable moves? What are reasonable thought patterns? What are reasonable values that would have allowed that to happen? And how it's being presented today, and then we can piece it back together ourselves. Is it going to be accurate? Well, how could we ever do that? And second, I mean, it's the point of view of a character that was there. We would be using it anyway, even if we did know specifically, like if we could interview somebody that was born back then, we could just raise them from the dead and interview them, right? Even then, what is the point of them telling us that story? For us to get the lesson out of it. So as long as we take the lesson and we create our culture going forward, that's what matters. And then this will be just a blip in history of Black culture, and we would have something that we can be proud of going forward. We can say finally that we overcame. People write speeches that we had the I have a dream speech, that we shall overcome speech, all of that has a purpose, but it's getting drowned out because that's what the word dominant means.
Yeah, facts. I agree wholeheartedly. Nothing to add there.
Okay, well, so if indoctrination deals with our thoughts, right? So our thoughts are the first thing that happens when we're, taking in an experience, when we're living our daily lives. The thoughts are what shape everything that comes afterward. The emotion that is felt most frequently in the Black culture is one of either anxiety, anger, or sadness. And I want you guys to think about these three emotions from Black people in a different aspect. Sadness for Black people is shown through acceptance of the dominant culture. The reason I say that is because it's hopelessness, it's helplessness, because you feel that you need to assimilate and be something different than yourself. The only way you could do that is if you have suffered, felt misery, stayed in the misery long enough to have all hope and even belief of help finally coming to be stripped away from you. And so the sadness is when you accept what's being done to you. So what do you think, Dr. G? Have you seen this in the places, in the school settings that you've gone to, the people you've interacted with? Have you seen people who are accepting of the culture and then it looks sad?
Right, because it's truly not fulfilling, right? So
Right.
because it's not genuinely who we are. We could say all day that we're going to quote unquote assimilate and be that, but you can't be what you aren't. And so your
Right.
best stitch effort will never make you a part of white society. Your best stitch effort will never make you accepted by the dominant society. You just won't be because, first of all, there's too much envy for what you have and who you are by that culture. They will never accept you as a aspect of that culture. And not to venture too far off, even people who are interracial in that they are mixed race, black and white, even they are not accepted into the
Right.
dominant culture because why? They have just a bit too much melanin to be
Right.
perceived to be a part of that society. So of course you're going to be met with sadness because you don't have anything to really connect to and identify with.
Right. And you're living a life of accepting the fact that you will always lose. The highest you could ever be would be position number two, a copy. You're
Yes,
wanting, you're being told to strive for something that you can never ever obtain. And so accepting that means that you will never ever be in position one. So that makes a lot of people just stop trying. And even if
yeah,
you do try, when you get second place, you have to now still somehow find the emotion that you would if you had gotten first place. That's, delusional, and it causes confusion, and that never leads to anything good mentally.
that's right. Yep.
Okay, well, so what about so the anger, right? The anger that I notice in Black people comes when we talk to them about progressing, when we talk to them about a life in which you can thrive, where you can be number one, but you don't have to run the same race that they do. What happens if you try out for a sport and you're not good at it, right? There are other sports you could try. Do you stay in that sport and just that's the only thing, and you watch other people do other sports, but you never try those? You just stay in this one, and the best you could ever get is like second place. You'll always be number two. But then or do you go to a different sport where your talents and your abilities can shine? The confusion that we give our kids, which creates that anger, is we tell them if you're not good at something, you practice, you keep going. If it's something that you just aren't interested in learning and getting on top of, getting to the top in that, whatever it is, whatever that action is, then you go to another one. But we don't do that when it comes to our identity, our core being. So when it comes to something outside of yourself, something extrinsic, I can't talk today. You are told that yes, try something else. Be good at this. Do a good job here. But then when it comes to who you are inside your whole core being, now, nope, just stay here. Don't do that. Don't try anything else different. And that helps with the assimilation, because you're still trying to prove your worth to someone who has a vested interest in, and their survival depends on them not seeing it. So
Hmm.
it's never going to happen. No matter, even if you get a great argument, they are still going to support one another in saying, nope, still not good enough. And they will secretly know amongst themselves that that was a good argument, but oh well. The answer, it to them, a viable reason is because it means that we wouldn't win anymore. But
Right.
they don't say that out loud. They refuse to say it out loud. And we all know the damage a person keeping an apology and an acknowledgement can do, right? Imagine a culture doing that to a whole culture of people for centuries. There's
Hmm.
no way that this could be anything other than damaging.
Right. And I think at this point, many of us wouldn't even believe it if they admitted it
Right,
because it's just
right.
been too long. Um,
There will be people who get upset saying that the rest of Black culture bullied them into admitting it. They can't ever just go somewhere, have a change of heart, and decide to do it, right? We had to have forced them to do it, and now look how mean we are. There are people that are Black that would get upset with us if we got an apology.
right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's sad, but anger is dangerous. Not that sadness isn't, and anxiety also, because there are so many of us who are not healthily matriculating through um how you mature, from an emotional standpoint, from a social standpoint, from a cognitive standpoint. We're not maturing because this happens in stages, right? And so we're met with so much trauma early on that we can't progressively move through the stages of maturation in a healthy way. And so you meet people who are very angry and anxious and sad about things, and you would expect them at this age or at this point in their life to be different, right? It seems very
Right.
immature. It seems very um amateuresque, if you will. The problem
Right.
is when trauma occurs, our maturation stops. It's halted. And because we are not a
Yeah, and
people who
brain
right, right,
structure changes. So that's when,
right.
that's my problem with those studies that say that our brain chemistry is different. Well, yeah, because you interrupted the appropriate growth. Whatever the different structure is, you created that. You interfered and changed that. And so then they use that to say why they should be allowed to do certain things to us. No, it is the result of you already doing things to us, and you're now trying to justify on the back end. So I'm sorry, Dr. G, for interrupting. That just angers me
The
when they do that.
effect of the cause, right? That the brain has been manipulated in a way or changed in a way because of this trauma. Um, but yeah, and you know, and the point to remember is that if we're not maturing in those stages in a healthy way, you're going to be stuck wherever the last part of your healthy maturation began. And
Right.
because we're not a people that pursue counseling, we're not a people that
Right.
go and get professional help. Many times you'll encounter people who are of a significant age, so to speak, but their maturation level is very immature.
Right.
Their emotional state is very immature. So things that normal people can have and I shouldn't say normal, things that healthy people can have a conversation
Typical.
about.
I use the word typical, meaning, it's what is expected. Typical developing.
Okay, people could have a conversation about and then agree to disagree and simply move on.
Right.
These folks who have this trauma, who haven't been able to emotionally mature, cognitively mature, right? They become angry. And then you begin to have these tantrums from people who, again, are considered to be of age, but that is their coping mechanism, right? Because it's very possible that the last time they were healthy and mature was in that kid like state. And so, no matter how old they get, until they get the help that they need, they will continue to function from an emotional place in that kid like state. And we encounter so many of these behaviors right here online. It happens
Hmm.
all the time. It's rare that you can have a conversation with people and folks, everybody on all sides just agree to disagree and then move on, right? It
Right.
becomes combative, it becomes argumentative, it becomes then the ad hominems begin, right? Very
Right.
childlike but done by adults, and so we miss it. We miss
Right.
the cues that are telling us that this behavior is just immature in nature. These folks haven't learned how to move through a problem and come out of it with a healthy solution. And it's all because of the things that you spoke about earlier, Topaz, with regard to our treatment in this country. It all goes
Right.
back, and then it's in years after years after years after years after years. And so, really, the only way we can even begin to move past this sort of thing is to start with the children and hope that they are being reared by people who are healthy. And if they aren't healthy, they at least recognize that they need help, get the help, and then put their children in a better situation.
And that's actually the reason why I that's what my content usually is based on, is getting people to understand that it should no longer be taboo for us getting mental health. We don't face the same barriers and dangers that we did in the past accessing help. And I'm not like belittling their feelings or anything like that, but just letting them know what's out there now. That, if something is dangerous to you, you not only cut it out of your life, but you try to to distance yourself mentally as much as possible. So my hope is just to get people to recognize that there is help available and it does work. It's much better now. It's not the same field where people get strapped to tables and have their brains zapped. We don't do lobotomies or anything like that. It's way different now. The last emotion that I see a lot of in the Black community is anxiety. And so what that usually comes from is we have a lot of people that have a fear of success. They're afraid of success. Apparently, success brings attention, and then that attention means that people are going to start doing bad things to you. We have people that have a fear of missing out. They have to know everything. They have to be involved in everything, but mastering nothing, not living their own life. They got to always be in somebody else's business. Both of those two things come from a place of trauma and abuse. As a culture, a whole group of people here in the United States are afraid to try and believe bad things will happen if they succeed. And so when you tell that, that to me, those three things go hand in hand. They accept our fate of negativity, and then they get angry when to them, it's like a death threat. If you tell someone, hey, do this so that you might be successful in life, they feel like you just threaten their life.
Right, right, right. Um, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. And just that without feeling threatened by your own success, that you're going to have to be met with some challenge. I would offer that you're going to be challenged regardless. That's just the natural course of things. If you aspire to get better, there's going to be a challenge, in the way of some sort. But the idea that, because you are aspiring higher or you're actually successful, and then you don't want to be that, or you don't want to highlight that because you're afraid that someone is going to
Hmm.
challenge you by it, is absolutely an aspect of trauma. Mackie Samuels asks, do
Yeah.
you believe it's more difficult for the working poor and the lower middle class to move through Maslow's hierarchy of need because of the challenges of their class? I do think it's more difficult, but I don't think it's impossible. I don't think that it's something that we can't do. But I do think
Right.
it's challenged because your every day is met with another type of trauma, possibly, right? This notion that you might not know where your next meal is coming from, this notion that you're met with, housing that's undesirable. Just those basic needs are not being fulfilled. And when that happens over time, and to degrees of being homeless and just not knowing where you're going to live, and then you have children that are going through that, you're absolutely going to have a harder time realizing, um, getting through, that maturation that I talked about, because again, that those situations are very traumatic. I think even the working class is going to have a difficult time, and we're met with a difficult time as well, because you're always worried about what happens if, right?
Right.
I'm okay now and I'm working now and all of this, but what happens if, that employment is taken away from me? What happens sum me up, and or I can't get to work because my car is not functioning? Just those very basic things that many of us, I think, take for granted, become a real
Right.
they become a real situation for people who don't have the economics, and people who are not in a situation to pad themselves in a way, to where they have something to fall back on in case things don't come together. I've been in a situation where I lost my employment, and it was through no fault of my own. The place closed. I was director of education, and the place closed. So here I am making, $80,000 a year, literally to zero. I didn't have
Right.
another form of functioning income. Now, I did have my EIN and my LLC established, but I wasn't working through that business because I'm working on the plantation, just so you know,
Right.
I'm working on the plantation. I'm doing what I thought to be guaranteed. And when that went away, it was quite a struggle. It was quite a traumatic experience. Um, Now, the one thing that put me in a different place or a different mindset about it is my level of credential.
Hmm.
I could have always walked back into the classroom. Now, I would have had to take a lot less pay, but I could have always walked back into the classroom to teach and be compensated, have benefits, and all of those things, right? The level of credentials would have always had me in a place where I could do something that was going to generate some sort of income. Um, but for me, I just decided, no, I'm not going to do the plantation. I'm going to try to go ahead and make this consulting business work. I'm going to try to start working based on my own intellectual property and get out here and try to make something else work, you know. And I was able to do that, thanks the Most High. But yeah, no, Mackie, yeah, it's good. I'm glad you asked that question. The people, our people who are economically challenged, to have being healthy in a system that is really meant to keep them unhealthy.
And I just wanted to say that this is a great question, and I'm glad you brought it up because the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is something that he has put together. Well, he had put together by studying human behaviors. He was watching what people were doing and seeing, what their tendencies, what their instincts drove them to. The challenge of the working poor and lower middle class is that they are missing the thing that helps you to learn the best. They're missing time and they're missing money or financial resources. They have effort. They have a whole lot of effort and motivation, but they only have one of the three things that will help you to learn something. So the base level needs are things we come here already scouring the earth for, to be able to fulfill. It's a drive. It's innate. How you learn, like let's say you need to know how do we know that people have allergies, right? They ate something and then they had a reaction to it. So how you learn is through your ability to process that, the impact of that action, the results. So while you're taking time to heal, you aren't working, you're thinking about the fact that this is what this food item does to me. If you don't have time to sit down after you eat a meal, you aren't going to pay attention to that. In the case of allergies, nature makes you sit down and pay attention to it because you'll die. But think about that in terms of anything else on that on that triangle, right? Before you can go to the next level, you need to have time to process what you learned from the previous one. You don't have time, you don't have money to buy time, you don't have money to buy something to help you see things clearer. If you're spending every day trying to figure out where dinner is going to come from, all day, every day, you're thinking about where dinner is going to come from. If you have to do something wrong to get dinner the night before, if you spend all the next day looking for dinner and not finding it, you don't learn anything that says, hey, maybe this is not a good idea for me to go rob a grocery store. So if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
is that you don't get to you don't get to access the actual learning. And that's why we have people that will say, oh, you don't learn from your mistakes. If they don't have time to sit down and understand what the lesson is they're supposed to take from it, no. If
Right.
they're not getting the nutrition where their brain can make the required connections to put this lesson into practice going forward, to learn how to apply this lesson across different environments, no, they didn't learn from it. So your question is good because that is exactly how it works. You can't go to the next level until you learn the lessons from the previous one. So there are people that will never reach self-actualization, knowing who you truly are, just being the best self that you can get from this planet. So I hope
That's
that um, answers
that's
your
right.
question, Mackie.
That's good. That was a great question. Thank you for asking that. Because I don't think many of us recognize that it's stages to this. And simply because you've reached a certain age, it does not mean that you've reached that
Right,
maturation point. It just doesn't.
right,
And when you're constantly met with traumatic experiences, chances are more than likely we haven't met, um, we haven't moved through those levels the way that we should, even at ages 40, 50, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. You still see people who are just not able to really contend in a conversation. Their actions, the decisions they make, their emotional intelligence, all of those things become challenged.
right, right. And so, okay, so to recap the conversation, we talked about the thoughts, and it starts with the indoctrination, which happened, way at the beginning from birth. Then the emotions that leads our culture to feel will be anxiety, anger, sadness, but they're tied to things that for other people would bring happiness. That's what I want you guys to recognize is our anxiety, our anger, our sadness would be tied, well, they are tied to things that other people would find pleasing. So to be accepted, well, that brings us sadness. For us to accept things from people, that brings us sadness. The anger, when we're told that we can do better, most people that would feel like uplifting, but for us, it does not. And our anxiety comes from success and missing out on something. For other people, that would feel like fulfillment. To us, it doesn't. And so I just want you guys to pay attention to what it is that we're dealing with here. And all of these things leads to us to not be able to practice discernment, and because all of our emotional things are mismatched. And the reason why I use the word typical is because if I'm thinking about the planet as it stands today and each one of the societies that we interact with, let alone our society here in the United States, other people that are practicing on the same, that are living on the same planet, have these things tied to something else. So there must be something inherently here that ties anger, sadness, and anxiety to something else for other cultures, and ties happiness to something else for other cultures. But we got a backwards message. So at this point, we're atypical. And I like to use
Mhm.
that word because I don't want to tie words like negative or normal. I don't mind as much. But what it says is that we now agree that their way is right. So,
Gotcha.
I,
That's right. No, I like that. Typical and atypical. Hmm.
and then finally, exclusivity. We don't value exclusivity as a culture. That's why our culture is able to be appropriated.
Right.
How
That's
many
right.
people have you heard that don't like going to places where there's going to be too many black people, or if it's an
Mm.
all black place, they view it as less than. So we don't close in our ranks. Whoever wants to come in, we're just happy that they showed up. Like, oh, okay, you want to be involved? Well, come on, I guess. And then we're expecting for them to throw us away. We're already having a defeatist mindset. We accept anybody in that can come in. We tell them everything that we do. We don't know why. We just, tell them that we do it. We don't have an answer for anything. They can come all. That's why they view, us as long as they have braids or if they put on a dashiki. That's it. They're now uplifting black culture. And the reason is because we don't keep them out of other things. We would not start. I'll tell you this. I was in this Native American group on Instagram, right? So there's the dream catchers. They found out, one of the admins found out that there was a Caucasian lady that was making them for fashion and making earrings, making necklaces out of them, and she was selling them for like $100 each. And so the general conversation was, well, if we sold it for $100, they would be calling us scam artists. They would be telling us that we're ripping them off. There's a spiritual connotation behind it, and and then they found out that people were getting like dream catcher tattoos. Apparently, the way she explained it was you would be inviting bad spirits into your life anyway. So that's why they don't they so for that, if they see someone with a dream catcher tattoo, they just kind of smirk and keep going. So they don't even mention it. They just let it happen. They don't save, a Caucasian person who has that tattoo. But if you're using it, not talking to people, and then they don't want you talking to people about the spirituality behind it unless you've actually practiced, which is why I won't go into detail. But this person is making money from it that they wouldn't be able to make from it. And they're not talking to anybody about what it's actually used for. Now, is there going to be any Native American person buying this from her? No. It's going to be for the whole rest of the world just walking around with it on. And imagine how that would feel. So, my point for bringing that up is that we don't do that in our culture. We don't stop people from using something that we deem as central to our culture in a money grabbing way. We would stop them. We would run over to them and tell them if they were doing something that we believe to draw in bad to them, saving them. We do the complete opposite. And I think that us not valuing exclusivity, us not being able to have or practice discernment, because if you have discernment, you are, usually attacked if you try to practice it. Those things perpetuate these unpleasant emotional states that we see in the community. And we are teaching our children. And that is how they view our children when they're putting them in disciplinary action. So what do you think, Dr. G?
No, I think you're right. Free because I do think we have, certain artifacts and things that we should be protecting, but we don't seem to do that. But I think it's based on this idea that we don't have culture, that we don't have anything that's worth
Right.
protecting, that's not something we should be relinquishing, but then I go back to what have we been taught as a people? What has school taught us? What has, the dominant society put in front of our face in terms of who we are and what we should expect to preserve about ourselves? We haven't learned a lot about that. It's going to be the most educated, and when I say educated in this way, I mean outside of the mainstream educational society. It's going to be those of us who have done their own education in these
Right.
realms that are going to understand that the most. And our people are trying to work and trying to earn, trying to eat, trying to get it. They just don't have time to do the research on these sorts of things. And then unfortunately, we don't have enough people who are giving this information
Right.
capitalistic society, they gotta earn and they gotta work and work and work and work and work.
Right.
So it's just a really ugly cycle. Um, but no, you're absolutely right. You know what I would like to see? I would like to see us practice an aspect of exclusivity by not comparing ourselves and or trying to measure up to the dominant society.
Right.
I would like for us to own our own measurements for success, even though
Right.
that won't look anything like the dominant society. Because when you think about it, it's a little maniacal to try to compare yourself or measure up to a people who have had 400 plus years of a head start in creating that thing that you're trying to capture.
Right.
You
Well,
just
yeah, basically they made us stay put while like we were both running away the race. We were winning, and so then they trip us, and then we have to sit out on the sideline and get iced up and wrapped before we can continue. And then when you continue, you're hobbling along and you're just glad to finish.
right. You
I
continuing you're continuing
didn't.
with you're continuing with a broke arm, one foot,
Right.
you got the flu, you got your teeth missing, you got an earache, you're
Yeah.
continuing, but you have all of these
And you got to keep
debilitating.
going with all of that going on. You got to
Yeah.
ignore the pain of all those things
Yes. Yes.
without wincing. I
Yes.
didn't mean to hijack your metaphor, Dr.
No,
G.
no, but you're right. That's exactly where we're going, babe. We can help each other get this message out. That's what's up. But I think that's what I would like to see us begin to do. And I think that the way we do that is to stop looking to celebrities. I've done several videos on my channel about,
Yep.
celebrities are just celebrities, and these are not people who we should be looking to aspire to be like. Because
Right.
it's problematic when you are attempting to measure yourself toward people who have, they are part of
Assimilated
mainstream.
essentially.
Yeah, they are part of mainstream and they have decided that they're going to try to live that life, not the life that they were given. And so, for regular people who don't have money, who don't have wealth or riches, it's problematic because you will never be able to attain that. And in addition to that, you're losing more of yourself. You're not learning anything about yourself in a way to be able to understand the importance of being exclusive. I mean, you never get to that place because you're too busy trying to be like what else, or at least what the mainstream is doing. And we have to remember that mainstream is not all white.
Right. It's
Yeah.
actually an attitude that transcends all of the races. Whoever's willing to do it can be on top up there, and they have a loyalty to that because of their intense fear of like one celebrity put it, coming back down here with us.
Mm,
Down here is how they view it, like a living hell. They truly believe that that's heaven for them. So I try to focus on the fact that that's not the only view of success. That's not the way that we measure success. We measure success by did something work. Money
mm-hmm,
is a result of it. Don't look at your success. Oh, well, if you're not making any money, it means you're unsuccessful. No, no. It means what you were doing, did it work? Now, the money part is because what are people willing to come out of pocket for?
mm-hmm,
Entertainment, music, sports, because they want to escape the humdrum of their own lives as well. So
mm-hmm,
you're providing them a way to do that. That's all the money represents. It doesn't mean like even the worst basketball, the worst professional basketball player still gets given money. The ones that
mm-hmm,
don't play, that sit on the bench, is still handed money because of the possibility of them entering the game at some point.
mm-hmm.
So does that mean he's a successful basketball player? Well, I guess more successful than someone who didn't get to the NBA, but less successful than the starters and the ones the household names.
Mm-hmm. Right. But when we begin to establish our own measures, see, none of those things will matter.
Right.
You will understand that you are successful once you have essentially met, whatever the goal was from the beginning without that monetary attached. And even when you attach monetary, how much do you aspire to earn before you say, okay, I've gotten what I need. I'm good. I can take care of myself and my people. Even my next generation is covered. how much do you actually need before you say, okay, enough is enough, I'm successful, I've done it. And I think that's what we should be looking at. What measure, how big of a house do you and three people need? Four people total.
Right.
Do you need 8 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms and 15-car garages, and you know what I mean? And not that we should be living
Right.
a life on need alone, but I'm just saying, couldn't your time be used to do something else rather than to be working to get things that you really don't need?
Right. Absolutely. And then if you can, and I'm not even going to tell you that you can't give
Hence
in to
making,
some of your wants.
yeah, hence
The
making your
ones you give
desires
into
more
can't get in
exclusive.
the way of your
At
needs.
that.
Exactly.
Hmm. No, that's right. That's
Okay. And
right.
so, and like you mentioned, if we start to value exclusivity, we won't mind, because there's, and the thing about it is we see the benefits of exclusivity across the planet, right? Why do people join sororities and fraternities in college? They are, yes, members of that college. I mean, they're students of that college now, but they also belong to a smaller group that does not tell everything that they do. What happens when we were in high school? Yes, you go to that same school, but you have your own little smaller clique that people can't just come in and get into for a reason. There's a reason for that. There's gatekeeping involved, and that gatekeeping is designed to keep your specific system in place. So if you value the system that you are in, you are going to make sure that nobody can come in and disrupt it. If we have our house, we tell people what type of people can come over and what can't all of the time. So why can't we do
Hmm.
that for our culture?
That's right.
I wouldn't
That's
invite
right.
somebody in my house that's known for fighting, because the first thing they break, I'm going to be upset. But can I really be angry if I know that and let them in?
That's right.
Hey, Naima.
Hey,
So
Naima.
that's what I'm thinking about when it comes to exclusivity. And so I know you don't have that much time left. The last thing I wanted to talk about was the action. So if we have indoctrinated thoughts, and those thoughts start early, our emotions are out of whack and tied to things that are atypical. What actions do you think that we're going to get out of the adults? One thing I
Hmm.
noticed was game playing. In that
Yeah.
song, he talked about people thinking that we're playing chess. Yeah, well, see, this is the thing. I hear people who want to sound dumb smart say, "Oh, I'm playing chess and y'all playing checkers." Okay, that's cute. But what if somebody's not playing the game with you? You got to get somebody to come sit down at the table with you to even play chess. What if they just flip the game over like people do in Monopoly? You know, you that works only for if someone is willing to entertain you in said game. So
Right.
what's the, like, why even, I don't even want that to be a thing that's upheld going forward. I can't wait until that little phrase dies out, because you're still focusing on something that has rules that people are going to abide by.
Right.
If you're playing chess, imagine what would happen if the person told you, "Hey, look over there," and they took like your queen off the board. That's
Right.
kind of what we're dealing with.
That's
That's what we're
right.
dealing with.
That's right. That's right. Right. Or you're playing and you don't even have all of the pieces.
Right,
Not just you don't have the queen, but you don't even have enough pawns. You don't have, the king. You don't have all the pieces. You got a few here and there.
right, exactly.
So,
And guess what? The board is slanted, so things are gonna be sliding all over the place. So even if you do abide by the rules, you're still gonna have all of these barriers to where you might not even be able to finish the game.
yeah, that's right back to the analogy we were talking about with running a race.
Exactly.
It's the same thing over and over again for us. So, from a large scale, what we need to remember is that, we've got to establish a different game. We've got to establish a different race with a different measurement of winning.
Right.
Because you know, we're matched by someone who has had a head start and who is not looking at leveling the playing field ever. Not
Right.
ever. There is no way they would give up their head start, so to speak, to level the playing field with someone who they know is better than them, more intelligent,
Right.
more passionate, more spiritual, more beautiful. They will never do it. And so to
You're right.
constantly compete with that particular opponent, it's like, how you growing up, somebody would say, pick on somebody your own size.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
they're not.
Yeah, like what do you do when you're being bullied? You got two choices: either hope that they just stop, or get them a new victim or something, or either you fight back.
Right, right.
And which one you do depends on your conscience. If you like help him get a new bully, or either you just sit there and wait until he stops or whatever, right? I mean,
Hmm.
there's no guarantee for that. There's no ending for that. If the other person moves away or if they fight back, then now you have the potential you can potentially be the victim again. So you're
Hmm.
at some point, you also are now throwing somebody else under the bus. As long as it's just not you, you're fine with it. But if you go ahead and fight back, then you don't have to worry about it at any point. And then you also didn't cause anybody else to have any concerns with this person as well. You might even stop them from doing it, making it a more peaceful place for you to be on the daily. Because even if you're not the victim, watching them beat up somebody else is still stressful.
Very true. And even if you fight back and lose, the bully is typically going to be done because the bully doesn't really want
Right,
to fight. The bully just
right,
wants to dominate. They don't
right,
really want to fight. They want you to submit and give up your
right.
power.
Because that's the fun part. The fun
So
part
if
is
you
being able
lose,
to walk up on somebody and they just automatically bow, right? That if you don't do that and they have to fight you, if you lose every fight for 2 weeks, every day you fight back and you lose, he's still going to get irritated and bored and leave. It's
that's
not
right.
worth it anymore.
That's right. It's not worth it. That's right. And I contend, when we use the bully analogy, we know a bully is really soft and weak.
Right,
They're looking for someone to make themselves feel better about themselves.
right.
Okay. Now let's apply that to the dominant culture and us. They're looking for someone to make them feel better about themselves. What that means is that they have to have a consciousness of who they are. They understand that they are not good people. They understand that they are not smart. They understand that they are not supreme. They
They
understand all
also
of
know
that.
that you have something that they want or need.
That's right.
So who does the bully pick on? Somebody that has lunch money.
Yep.
He's not gonna. I mean, even if he tries to beat up somebody that doesn't have lunch money, at some point he's gonna want money. He's gonna want food or snacks or something. Whatever it is, he's gonna want some tangible thing. And if you don't have it, yeah, he might still beat you up that day, but it would be foolish to keep doing it and not getting the thing that he's looking for in the first place. So if we apply that to the dominant culture, we have something that they want. If we didn't have anything, if we were so worthless, they wouldn't even waste their time
That's right.
trying to oppress us.
That's right. That's right. And so that right there should give us a certain amount of acknowledgement.
Self-esteem.
Well, acknowledgement about there's a culture. There's a culture of that they're aspiring to. There's something that they're trying to get that they don't have, right?
Right,
And
right,
they have leveled this aspiration to the extent that they're coming after the kids. And where is that being done? It's being done in the classroom. It's no it's not by coincidence that 80% of the teachers today are white female. That is not coincidental. It's very much by design. You know,
right,
the dominant culture will use its woman because the woman is supposed to be the one who is, we're not suspicious of the woman because she's supposed to be meek and mild and all of these things, right? She's supposed to be
right,
unassuming. But you put her in front of the classroom of these kids for 8 to 10 to 9 years, however long you go in the education system, you put the kids in front of her or put her in front of the kids all those years. And now what you've done is you've continued the legacy of keeping us in a place of oppression.
right.
And it's in a very way.
So what they
They
did with
graduate
their
school. We hope they're getting an education. They move through. They pass. Go ahead, Topaz.
okay, because there's something your line is crackling a little bit. I'm not sure. We couldn't really hear everything you were saying, so I just want to add in while we wait for it to clear up. Was that look what they've done with their power and influence is create a law that says they have to have access to your kids 40 hours per week. but they do it by making it seem like your kids could be there while you're at work, because otherwise what's the other option? They would be at home with you and you would be the one responsible for teaching them everything they needed to know before adulthood. Well, that's what we as a culture used to do before we could be in school legally. And so
Right.
now they get to grab your kid from you for 8 hours a day. And what happens when you tell, like, if your neighbor were to come over and always want to knock on your door, they want to always come inside, and then they look around and then they go tell everybody what all types of things that you have, what brand of TV you have, what the furniture looks like, all this kind of stuff, right? At some point, you would get annoyed and tell them to stay out of your business. Don't come back over here. Why do we feel comfortable doing that to other Black people? Don't tell me how to raise my kid, but you let the school tell you how to raise your kid, you let the government tell you how to raise your kid, and you accept the idea that they know better than you.
Absolutely right. Am I clearer now? Can you hear me better? Am I coming through a little
Yes,
bit more clearly? Okay. And in addition
yes,
to
yes,
that, let's
you are.
let's just be real. When you send your kids to school, um, then most of us go out and we continue to work on the plantation. Hence,
Right. So they're
making
talking
the
to your
dominant
kids
culture
and they're
more
talking to
rich.
you.
Keeping you in the loop, keeping you from being able to do for self. By the message, oh, you're doing good today, and thank you for this, and they give you a little paycheck, and the loop just continues for generation after generation after generation. Um, but what we begin to realize is that we've not done anything for self, really. We've not learned anything about ourselves. We have not taught our kids anything about themselves. And then we begin to see some of these other subculture behaviors become more prominent, hence the interracial dating, right? Hence the
Hmm. Because then
homosexuality.
at that point, there's no difference between us and them. It's like, oh well, like a lot of people I see that aren't against interracial dating, they're very upset with people who are, because they truly don't see a difference between us and the other cultures. Not, it's not always so that some of them get angry when we say that they have a mindset based in white supremacy. For some people, it's truly not that. They are just indifferent. It was way different. And so they really feel like they have a point, and they feel like that negates what we're saying. The point is anything other than recognizing that you have something that they aspire to, which means that they need to take it seriously if they are allowed over here. If they get to come into the culture, they need to be told how to be respectful, how to interact with us. They need to be, understanding of what it is we expect and what we'll require and what we'll tolerate. If they can't, that's the thing that I don't see people doing when they date interracially. I don't see them, saying, look, if you're going to be over here with me, you need to be worthy of that and be capable of being respectful, because the way the world views us is disrespect. So you need to be able to find a way to not do that, to respect me. And then B, you need to understand how to interact with other people that I talk to on a daily basis, other people in my life that I need. And if you come over here and you disrupt that, then I should have no problem getting rid of you.
I agree. I agree. I tend to lean towards a complete separation, but I mean, let's face it, right? So I agree with that. You set your
Yeah.
tone, you put your stake in the sand and you say, "Hey, do not cross this line." Period. But I believe in
Yeah.
that with all of these things. I don't think, we have to lean towards a certain behavior because it's what the dominant culture is doing. I don't believe that at all. We've always had the dominant culture trying to push something down our throats, since we've been here. But everybody has not succumbed to those things, and how did you do that? You taught in your home what the expectations were, and you didn't deviate from that, no matter what was going on outside of your home, or no matter what was going on
Right.
in the next door. You taught what the expectations were. I truly believe that we have the right and we have the power to program our children to be what they need to be. But the question becomes, how adamant are you willing to be? How much time are you willing to sacrifice from self to donate and give back to those kids and their teachings? Are you willing to turn the TV off
Right.
completely? Are you willing to say that there are certain people that they just cannot hang out with or be around? You know, are you willing to
Right.
put them in a predominantly Afrocentric schooling, right? And or homeschooling. These are the sacrifices that we have to be willing to make if we want to truly, quote
Right.
unquote, own the indoctrination of our kids, right? And I say quote unquote, like
Right.
using the term loosely, own and indoctrination, but you can program your kids. It's just what are you willing to do? And what are you willing to sacrifice? If you're out here trying to measure up to the dominant society, then chances are you're going to relinquish, you're going to fail at something.
Right.
You're going to give something
Well, I
back,
wanted to
right?
make one last point.
Hmm.
Exactly. One last point is because since we all like talking about other cultures, in the Latin culture, right? So they do get, coupled up very early, like maybe high school or so. This is the thing that has more value than a um, dominant culture education. I was told that, for them, once you get through middle school, you've gotten everything that you need to know in order to survive in life. Now, they will follow the laws and they'll go to high school or whatever, but for those who don't, no one is called, no one, the rest of Latin culture isn't sitting around saying, "Oh, you're a dropout. I can't work with you. I can't hire you for my business because you didn't get a high school diploma. Your GED isn't good enough." And so the
Hmm.
thing is, what that shows to me is that when they do come out of school, if they decide to not continue, they do have something else that they are doing, something else that they know how to do now that could take care of them and their families. They're not just sitting at home all day. They also respect one another and their decisions to be able to do that because they understand where it comes from. They don't really care about what the dominant society wants them to know. They know what they need to know in order to survive. And then the rest of it, what they're placing in higher regard is because let somebody at that school tell the kids that they can't bring their authentic lunch from home. We get told
Hmm.
that about our kids with their hair. Let somebody tell them that they can't wear their hair a certain way or they can't wear authentic clothes from their culture. They'll pull their kids out of school. They'll
Yeah.
go through all of the steps that they need to do. They'll either, hide their kids and just, take the responsibility for being on the lam, so to speak, or either they will go through all of the steps and it's worth it. And they will get support from the rest of the people in their community that understand, yeah, well, I don't want to be there either. I wouldn't do it either. I understand exactly why it's
Right.
not worth it. But we tell ourselves, oh, yes, it is worth it. Cut your dreadlocks. Because if you don't, I'm not paying your bills. I'm not supporting that. I had to cut
Right.
mine. So
Right.
it's way different. It's an acceptance that they get in their community for understanding that this is first. They all feel this is home is first, and then the school is second. So even though there's a law in place, there is civil disobedience. They will, in fact, go and say, "This is my culture. I'm not. You can't make me." I thought that's what this. That's why my grandparents came over here. I thought that's what this country was built on. They will fight the good fight. They will go the distance, and we don't, and we
Hmm.
stop each other from going the distance.
Right. And that's because
So
we're
since we're
okay with
comparing ourselves to these other cultures, exactly.
we're okay with just moving over into dominant. We're going to aspire to that, even though, as we said an hour ago, you will never be, ever be a part of dominant society. I don't care how much money you earn. I don't care what you do. Those people who have aspired to a certain amount, who have earned, I should say, a certain amount of wealth in, you know, all they have to do is do something just out of sorts, make a decision that's adverse, don't side with the dominant society, and then they will lose that wealth. And we've seen that time and time again. So,
Right. We're the only ones trying as well. Is that's why I brought those two things up, is because the other cultures aren't even trying. They may go to work
mhm,
and say things like that the person might view as them trying, but that's all calculated. It's a reason for that. And then they go home and they just become themselves where they're not trying. They're not even paying attention. They just got over here so that they can do what they need to do for their family, and all the
mhm.
rest of that stuff that the dominant culture is talking about, it's going in one ear and out the other. They're not trying. They're not aspiring to be them. They got what it is that they came over here to do.
Mhm.
All the other stuff is just something that they tell them so that they can get what they need.
Agreed. Agreed.
So I guess the last thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that the game plan, right? So our actions, after we have the thoughts and the emotion states and all of that, and our actions and game plan, I mean, it's nothing wrong with trying to have a game plan. There's nothing wrong with having game. The problem is we're playing the wrong games. We're focusing on money. The other two cultures are not focusing on money. One is focusing on their commitment to one another. The other is focusing on dominating through services and products, being in control. So we're not playing the right game. Money doesn't mean anything. Money is backed by something. Otherwise, I could just take a piece of paper out of my notebook, write a number on it, and hand it to you. Where can you spend it? What can you go out and exchange that for? So, if we focus on money and we all are millionaires overnight, it isn't going to matter if we can't buy what we need. Then, what if we get to a point in society where $1 million isn't even minimum wage anymore? You can barely
Mm-hmm.
survive. You can't buy the things that you need. If they decide that they don't want to accept money from you, that we gave you
Right.
the money, now you need to go find some place to spend it, because we don't want you shopping in our store.
That's
So we're
right.
playing the wrong game.
For sure. For sure. For sure. I couldn't
Okay,
agree
well,
more.
Dr. G, that's
Couldn't
all I
agree more.
had planned for today. Anything that you had that you wanted to make sure to bring up? Are you a mod in here, Dr. G? Let me see.
Um, I don't know. But I certainly subscribe to the channel
Okay.
and have even gone back and listened to some of your other commentary. I appreciate your commentary on single
Oh,
mothers. We should do something about that together
thank
because I
you.
had a series and
Yes.
I even developed a channel, um, a silo for single mothers that I'm really not putting content
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not on catering. I'm not doing as much as I should be on catering to the culture with Dr. G, but I am very adamant about changing the narrative about single mothers that we're hearing on here. I think it's just nonsense, and
Right.
also also just providing any advice or anything I can to women who might find themselves in that situation, things that I've learned, hopefully I can share with them and then they can not have to go through some of the things. That was the premise of my Asilo for Single Mothers channel, but like I said, I'm not really developing it. I just haven't had the time. Yes, I'd like for us to do something on that too, in the near
Okay.
future because I think
Well,
that's important. Yeah.
yeah. So I just gave you a moderator wrench, and so if you could put in the chat that video from Irene and Phil from the Advice Show, and so we can recommend for people to go over and watch that. Also, Q Butters channel. I don't know. Oh yeah, look at. I used to have the website for Q Butters school, but I don't have it now. I'll put it, I think, later, or if somebody else, if any of the other mods can put that in there. Welcome, Black Era TV. So my ending thoughts on all of this is just that we have to be willing and ready to accept the fact that we've had some damage that happened to us. That doesn't mean that we're just so a bad person. It's okay to have had something that happened to you. That's not the problem. The problem is if you stay there. And so if you are willing to stay there, now you're making it a choice. It wasn't a choice for you to have that happen to you. You didn't make that choice, but the choice that you have control over, you are just letting somebody else choose for you. That also is a choice. Letting someone else be the person that decides is a choice. So I don't appreciate the comments about how slavery was a choice per se, but the things that we've done since then have been our choice. And some of them we won, some of them we didn't. It's it's a battle. It's overall. We still have more things that we need to
That's
fight
right.
for. It's not time to give up. It's not time to rest.
That's right. I mean, but don't get me wrong. I will say this just as a testament for some folks. I don't feel like this, but I do understand why people have begun to say, you know what, I can't anymore. I get it because I look out at what we're facing and it becomes ever so clear that those of us who haven't stopped fighting are gonna have to dig in real deep. Man, I'm telling you, we're gonna have to dig in
Right.
deep from the core. Like I'm telling you, you're gonna have to pull up some energy from whoa, man, the motherland for sure, if you're going to continue to fight this fight, because so many of us are just so lost and we're so indoctrinated and so traumatized and just hurting. We need to heal. And to the extent that we've just said, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm just going to live my life the way that that society has dictated I do that, so that I don't have to worry about it, right? So I get it. I totally get it. But I'm so thankful to the Most High that I wasn't built that way. I'm not the
Right.
one to I'm not the one to throw in the towel.
Right.
Simply to foot in a cast arm, and I'm carrying 10 bricks, and I got an allergy infection, I can't hear in one ear. I'm not the one to stop the race because of that. I'm not the one to say I can't win this game because I didn't have all my pawns or somebody stole my queen. You know what I mean? I'm the one to try to make a way out of no way.
Right. And
That's
we
who I am.
technically, I don't believe in that. Right. And I don't believe in it because we can't. Just because you break your ankle doesn't mean that you are going to be something different. You can't turn your body and soul in and for a refund because you don't like the way this one is going. So whether you throw the community away or not, you still are going to be part of it. You're throwing yourself away, essentially. There is no place where you can go where you will not be considered Black. Unfortunately, that is one thing we do have to accept, is the fact that the world has decided to accept these labels. You will still be considered Black. Now, what they think about Black people can change. You could be the person that they meet and then they start to have a higher opinion of Black people. Okay, fine. Maybe they already had a higher opinion of Black people, but you will still always be Black. So on that note, thank you
That's one
so
thing in
much,
fact.
Dr.
I've
G. I
actually
know
done a
you
video.
can't stick around for the question. Huh?
Oh, can you hear me? Oh no, I was just gonna say that was the one
Yeah, I
thing
can
I
hear you.
made it. I made a video about that too. You can change your orientation, you can change your religion, you can change, you want to do the LBGTQ, but you can't change your BLACK, right?
Right.
That's the
And if
one thing.
I made you a moderator, so if you want to drop any of your videos in here, you can.
Oh, I appreciate that, Topaz. I do. And let me just say to the family that's listening, thank you guys for coming through. I had a situation that caused me to have to move the interview or the discussion up, and Topaz accommodated me. I appreciate that. And so, yeah, I'll be dropping off for that reason. But I appreciate you guys. Many of you I see all the time in these streets. Many of you are already subscribers to my channel, and you come through and you support by watching and leaving me a comment, and hopefully giving me a thumbs up and sharing sharing when you can. So I just appreciate you guys. I appreciate being a part of this particular here. I just want to see us conversation. I want to see us, begin to have more, to highlight more of the things that we're doing that are going to progress us, rather than those things that keep us arguing and bickering and that kind of thing. I know that that is a part of it too. We like, doing the dozens and the Jones, and we like, the roasting and all of that. And that's fine and dandy, but it does need to
Right.
be, also there needs to be a very thick layer of diverse conversation that's about furthering us, intelligent conversation, about how we move forward. And so I'd like to see that too. But I appreciate being a part of this network on YouTube. And so what I'm going to do is continue to put good content on my channel, and hopefully you guys will subscribe, continue to support and subscribe, and we'll just kick it that way. Topaz, you're a gem. I didn't discover
Oh,
you
thank you
until
so
very
much.
recently. I've only discovered you very recently, but you are a gem. You are doing the kind of content that I'm talking about. I encourage you to keep on going. That more persistent about your content than I've ever been, which is awesome. But keep on doing what you're doing, because you do the kind of content you do. It'll take a minute for you to grow, but trust and believe that you
Right.
will grow, because there is a group of very intelligent, information seeking Black people on here. And so the more they discover that that's the kind of content you do, they'll begin to subscribe and share videos and those sorts of things. So stay encouraged, because you're doing the kind of content that we certainly need.
I've learned that I couldn't do anything different even if I tried. Like I was supposed to be
You know what?
resting and I had something to say. So then I made a
I said
channel.
the same thing. No, I said the same thing. I don't care if it takes me 10 years to get to 1,000 subscribers. I have about 900
Right.
some people who actually come over to hear what I have to say. Right? It's
Right.
powerful.
Right.
Even when I
And
have
when I think about
hundreds.
why I got this degree, people like to say that I got the degree to shove it in men's faces or whatever. I don't even talk to them. When I tell men they don't know I have a degree until they ask. I got this degree for one reason only, to help myself and my kids and my community. You know,
Yeah.
that's the whole reason why I got it. I was interested by the conversation in my first psychology class, and nobody had ever talked to me about these things. So I'm like, wait a minute, if I learned this, then I can come back and tell them, I was naive, you know. But so I was like, that was the whole reason why I got it, was to do this, to spread, positivity in the word, and uplift the people that I saw with the sad faces all of the time. So,
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
that's
No,
why.
I mean, I got my channel during the time when I told you I was working at a place and it closed, and I was kind of thinking about I need a new way and a new direction. And both my husband and my son were like, "Well, why don't you develop a YouTube channel? Why don't you get on and share your experiences and this and
Hmm.
that?" And so that's where it came from. But the fact that anybody decides that they want to come over and hear what I have to say, I'm so humbled by that. The numbers don't matter as much to
Right.
me as it does that I'm putting out content that matters to people, that get people talking, that people can resonate with, and that's what matters to me most. I'm not concerned about monetization and all of those things. I'm more concerned
Right.
about making sure that I have a message that resonates with our people. So that's why I'm very calculated about what I'll put on and what I'll say on my channel and what
Right.
I won't. And if and when
Right.
I start doing lives, I'm just going to be very selective about what that panel looks like, because I don't want to turn it into something that was not my intent in the beginning, right?
Right,
So,
exactly. Staying true to yourself. And so for me, the
yeah,
monetization would only mean that people are willing to put in, willing to put their money where they claim their hopes are. And so, am
their
I the only
interest.
person doing this content? No. Yeah,
Right,
exactly. I'm not
right.
the only person doing it. They may be supporting somebody else, so I don't really technically worry about it. To me, the only thing it would mean is that they're now willing to trust me to do it.
That's right. To
So
come
I
to
don't
you
really
for
pay
the
attention
information,
to it. Right, right,
solicit Topaz for the information. Now, see, that's powerful
right.
too.
Yeah,
Too.
exactly.
Hey, Joe. Long time no see, Joe. Long time no see. The chat is awesome. Love you guys. You all are the reason why we do, or at least why I do what I do on my channel. I am going to do some lives very soon. I just got to kind of get my setup around me. My the
Right,
live setup. I want to have that a certain way. And my husband is working on that for my branding and that kind of thing.
right, right. And
That guys
teamwork.
keep
See, you got
support.
the Black family involved.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, right. Yes. No kidding. No kidding. So Topaz, in the last email, I shot you my number. Do me a favor and shoot
Okay,
yours, because I just like to kind of build with you on what we were talking about with the center that I
okay,
work for. And also just some
right.
information about Houston, girl. We're looking to get to a warmer place, honey.
Look at me recruiting people, but okay. And then also, and I would love that because I want to talk to you in depth about the actual programs that I want to put in place and propose to people. So, like we definitely have some things that I would enjoy discussing with you. Before we get to the music portion and the interlude, I want to say thank you so much from Kenny Conjo for the Cash App, so ever supporting.
Yes. Thank you, Kenny. That's so awesome. Kenny's awesome.
I know, right? So, and Dr. G, I know you said that you couldn't stick around for the questions, and so what I normally do at this point is I'm going to play another song, and then I will see if anybody wants to come up. If not, we'll end. If they do, then we'll just talk, about the impact, the reaction to what was being said. If they have
Gotcha.
anything, I'll let you know if they have anything specifically that they wanted to address with you.
Okay, yeah, please do that, because we could take this conversation another 2 hours very easily. It's so much
Yeah.
to unpack when
Yes.
we start talking about kids. And so yeah, with that, I look forward to doing more collabs with you, Topaz. I appreciate this, and peace to the
I
chat and
would
peace to
love
you,
this.
sis.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Okay,
Take
peace to
care.
you too as well. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, guys. So if you're still here, the music portion for this evening, this choice is from Leela James. It's a song called Set Me Free. And what I feel like you guys should be feeling when you listen to this song right now is being free from all of the shackles, mentally and emotionally, because we have a tendency to only deal with the physical ones. If you can't see it, we tend to believe that that means that there's no barriers, and that is absolutely not true. Sometimes it's worse when you're not physically in chains, if the chains are not being able to be seen by anybody else. So enjoy this song. She has an amazing voice. Get into the right spirit. And if you guys have any questions or any comments, you want to come up, you want to speak, let me know. So if not, then we'll end at that point. So thank you guys for coming in and listening to the conversation with me and Dr. G. If you have any questions or comments afterwards, leave them in the comment section below. Respectfully. Why you keep doing me wrong? I don't know that, and it hurts so bad. I'm tired of being sad. This house is not a home. The love is gone, baby. I just can't see. I can't stand that face anymore. Oh no, no, no. It's you. Your love set me free, set me free. Holding on to loving. Oh, you got me, set me free. Just set me free if you love me. If you love me, if you care, be a man and let me go instead of saying chance like we love each other. When we both know there's something better waiting for me. Just can't see. I can't see my face anymore. We're just wasting time. And I just can't see. I just can't see. Set me free. Set me free. We're just holding on to nothing, 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 nothing. Perfect love, set me free. Oh, just set me free to love you. What happened to the love we had? It went away somehow. It used to be so good, but it's all that time. And I tried to make it work. I tried to fix the plan. I gave it all I got. Can't you understand? Oh, if you like me, set me free, baby. 'Cause we're walking on to nothing. You love me, you love me, set me free. I Okay, guys. So, no panelists have come up, so I'm gonna choose to take that as this conversation was already thorough enough. Nothing to add, nothing to question. With that being said, I'll see you guys Monday for the Black Plague series. Bye. Enjoy your weekend.